Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to picture something. You ever look at your life and quietly wonder,
How did I end up here? Now, I don't mean in a dramatic movie scene kind of way, just slowly, silently. One late night at a time, one skipped workout, one I'll start tomorrow, one extra hour scrolling, one ignored alarm, one tiny compromise nobody noticed, including you. Because that's the terrifying thing about life. Most people don't destroy themselves all at once. They do it gradually, habit by habit, until one day they wake up inside a life they never consciously chose.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact opposite side of that coin. The exact same process is also how people become extraordinary. Not through massive breakthroughs, not through intense motivation, not through one life-changing decision, but through tiny actions so small they seem almost meaningless. In this explainer, we're going to uncover the invisible force quietly shaping your future every single day. And once you see it, you can never unsee it again.
This builds into what we call the myth of big changes. Every January, millions of people try to reinvent themselves overnight. They buy planners, wake up at 5 a.m., delete social media, drink green juice, listen to podcasts at 2x speed like their life depends on it. And for a few days, they genuinely believe this time is different. But then life returns, the motivation fades, the discipline cracks, and slowly they drift back into the exact same patterns. Not because they're lazy or weak, but because almost everybody has been taught the wrong philosophy of change. We've been conditioned to believe that transformation looks dramatic, that your life changes in one cinematic moment where suddenly everything clicks. But real change is almost invisible while it's happening.
For real-world proof of this, look no further than British cycling. In 2003, they were a joke. One Olympic gold medal since 1908. A major bike manufacturer literally refused to sell them bikes because they feared it would hurt their sales. Then, a man named Dave Brailsford took over. He didn't scream about greatness or promise overnight success. Instead, he became obsessed with the aggregation of marginal gains. Just look at this list. They redesigned bike seats, rubbed alcohol on tires for better grip. They literally hired a surgeon to teach cyclists how to wash their hands properly to avoid getting sick. And the detail that sounds almost insane, they painted the inside of the team truck white so they could spot tiny particles of dust that might damage the bikes.
So the crucial point is at 1%. The idea was simple. If you improve everything by just 1%, those tiny gains eventually become extraordinary. Think about that level of obsession. Most people want a different life, but they ignore the dust. They want confidence without fixing sleep, success without fixing focus, peace without fixing attention. They chase outcomes while neglecting systems. And that's why they stay stuck.
Which brings us to the most dangerous lie you can tell yourself. I just need to try harder. But what if effort isn't the real problem? What if the problem is your system? Because here's the brutal truth. You can't build a healthy life on a chaotic foundation. You can't outwork broken systems forever. Eventually, your habits always expose your reality, not your intentions. Your habits. Your life right now is not a reflection of your goals. It's a reflection of your systems.
And this comparison perfectly captures the trap: goals versus systems. Goals are seductive. They feel productive. They give you dopamine. But systems? They're boring. They're repetitive. They don't look impressive on social media. Yet systems quietly determine almost every outcome in your life. Winners and losers often have the exact same goals. Every Olympian wants gold. So if everybody has the same goals, goals aren't creating the separation. The difference is the system, the invisible routines. That explains why smart, ambitious people still self-sabotage and procrastinate. Desire is not enough. You can desperately want a better life and still repeat the same destructive loops.
Watch how this compounds in real time. Imagine two people, same age, same opportunities. One person reads 10 pages a day, the other scrolls social media for an extra hour every night. After one day, nothing changes. After 1 week, still nothing. 1 month, almost impossible to notice, but after 5 years, they are psychologically living on different planets. That's the terrifying beauty of compounding. Tiny actions don't just add up, they multiply. Habits are compound interest for your identity. One extra drink, one extra excuse, one extra skipped workout. Nobody notices the damage immediately because the consequences arrive late.
Look at this number, 3.5 degrees. Imagine a plane leaving Los Angeles for New York. The pilot shifts the angle just 3.5 degrees south. Barely noticeable. The passengers wouldn't even feel it. But over time, that tiny adjustment lands the plane in Washington, D.C. instead of New York. That's your life, not dramatic collapse, not dramatic success, tiny, repeated direction changes. This destroys the fantasy that one magical breakthrough will save us. Real transformation usually feels boring, quiet, and almost disappointingly small.
And that leads us to where almost everyone quits, the valley of disappointment. You wake up early for 2 weeks, still anxious. You go to the gym for a month, still insecure. You start learning a skill, still mediocre. And eventually, a dangerous thought appears. Maybe I'm just not the kind of person who can change. But the problem usually isn't failure. The problem is delayed results. Human beings expect linear progress, effort in, results out. But life compounds underground first.
Think about the classic ice cube metaphor. Imagine an ice cube sitting in a freezing room. 25 degrees, nothing. 26 degrees, nothing. 31 degrees, still nothing. Then suddenly, 32 degrees, the ice melts. And from the outside, it looks instant, but it wasn't instant. Every previous degree mattered. Your efforts are not wasted just because they are invisible. They are being stored.
But we are fighting against this modern dopamine culture. We live in a world that trains us to abandon long-term growth. Everything is optimized for immediacy, instant entertainment, validation, delivery. Because of that, we are losing our ability to tolerate delayed rewards. Our nervous systems are being conditioned for instant gratification, which means habits that create extraordinary lives feel emotionally unrewarding at first. Reading feels slow, deep work feels painful, and doom scrolling feels effortless. We end up trapped, judging our progress entirely too early.
And this brilliantly illustrates that habits are a double-edged sword. They are neutral. They don't care about your dreams. They simply magnify repetition. Stress, loneliness, negative thoughts, they compound. One negative thought becomes a lens, and your mind becomes an algorithm feeding itself negativity. But the reverse is also true. Confidence compounds. Knowledge compounds. Discipline compounds. One good decision rarely changes your life, but repeated daily, it changes your identity.
So the crucial point is right here. Identity emerges from repetition. The real power of habits isn't productivity, it's identity. Every repeated action is a vote for the type of person you believe you are becoming. When you study consistently, you become someone who learns. When you train consistently, you become someone who keeps promises to themselves, not because of one dramatic achievement, but because they're evidence. And eventually, your brain stops arguing with repeated evidence.
Now let's talk about the trap of conditional happiness. I'll be happy when I lose weight, when I make money, when I get followers. People spend years postponing their lives, always emotionally living in the future. And when they finally achieve the thing they wanted, the satisfaction fades almost immediately. Because achievement is a moment, but systems become a lifestyle. Process-oriented people find calm because they aren't emotionally dependent on outcomes every day. They find meaning in becoming.
This brings us to the scoreboard problem. There's a reason elite coaches obsess over the process. Staring at the scoreboard doesn't help you win. Imagine trying to improve your life while constantly checking your subscriber count, your weight, your bank account daily. Because growth is delayed, you become emotionally discouraged before compounding can occur. That's why people quit too early. The world calls successful people overnight successes, but nobody sees the invisible years, the silent repetitions, the days where nothing seemed to change.
Consider this powerful thought from Jacob Riis. A stonecutter hammers at a rock 100 times without a crack appearing. Then on the 101st strike, the rock splits open. But it wasn't the final hit that did it. It was all the hits before it. That's life. People see the breakthrough. They don't see the accumulation. Maybe right now you're somewhere around hit number 47 or 82. And because the rock hasn't split yet, you think nothing is happening. But something is happening, always, underneath.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. What do you normalize every day? The quality of your life is rarely determined by dramatic moments. It's determined by what you repeatedly normalize. That's the real game. Not intensity, not motivation, normalization. Do you normalize distraction, excuses, emotional avoidance? Or learning, movement, reflection, and presence? Because eventually, your habits become your environment, and your environment becomes your identity.
Think about the invisible future. Right now, somebody is quietly building the strongest version of themselves. No applause, no viral moment, just tiny repeated actions. And somewhere else, someone is slowly collapsing through equally tiny decisions. Your future is not being created by the big decisions you obsess over occasionally. It's being created by the repeated behaviors you barely notice daily.
You don't need a superhuman transformation. You just need to become slightly better at returning. Returning to the process, returning to the system, returning to the person you're trying to become again and again.
Because success is rarely one massive event. It's thousands of invisible choices quietly compounding beneath the surface until one day your entire life looks different. And I'll leave you with this final, powerful thought. The scary thing about habits is that they're always working. The beautiful thing about habits is that they're always working. The only question is, what invisible choice are you making today?